And this will carry over a little bit from our previous segment because we have to have a bit of a Purdue dialogue. This has been the number one team in the country for longer this season than any other team in the sport. They are also a team that came out of nowhere, essentially. Now, that's not to say they weren't good. They didn't have some good returning pieces, but this was not a top 10 team in the country preseason. Everybody in their right mind expected this team to lose Jaden Ivey, to lose Travion Williams, and to take a step back from the talented top 5 team in the country that they were last season. Didn't really happen at all. Non-conference was great. Some marquee, massive wins that still hold up pretty well. And then conference play, for the most part, for the first 2 months of the season, they ran through what feels like a down year in the Big Ten and were clearly in a tier of their own. Now they have lost 3 of their last 4 games. We talked a little bit about the inexperience in the backcourt, but even stepping back from a broader standpoint with this team, I looked at who they've beaten in Big Ten play, guys. They're 1-3 against KenPom top 30 teams in the entire conference season. I mean, we can go back and say, hey, that win against Duke looked great at the time. That win against Gonzaga looked pretty good at the time. Those teams aren't the teams we thought they were in the non-conference. And in the Big Ten, they're not really even getting too many opportunities to play teams that are going to be national contenders in the NCAA tournament. And when they do, they've really struggled in those moments. So, RC, tell me if I would be wrong to completely jump ship from believing that Purdue could potentially make a run in March.
When you say make a run, you're saying make a run to Houston?
I'm saying make a run to Houston because that's where Painter needs to get, right? He hasn't gotten there yet. Yeah. He's had a few teams worthy of it. And this is, I mean, a month ago, I would have said, this is the best team in the sport. Now I'm looking at this like, how are they going to make this happen?
I think they're going to win out. They got 3 of their final 4 games at home. I think they'll win out. Their only road game is at Wisconsin. The only thing that concerns, or the big thing that concerns me is teams are just turning up the pressure on them, and it seems like it's just slowing them down. They've always been a team that runs their sets. And it just seems like, all right, let's press, slow you down. You take 8-10 seconds to get across half court, call your set. Now you actually, it just doesn't seem to be enough time for them. And then teams are pushing Zach, fighting Zach off a little bit. He's almost getting the Shaq treatment where they're fouling the hell out of him. Yeah. It's really what's happening to him. And they're not calling it. But then he's in a lane sometimes for, it seems like forever. So I'm sure there's a lot of complaining about that. But listen, that's going to be adjustment, man. Matt Painter's too good of a coach. I mean, there's nothing that they hadn't seen. They've been on the road. They do have a young group of guys. They're just going to need to reset. They can make a run in March because they have the most dominant player in college basketball. That's why they can make a run. So they always got a chance. And he's been as consistent as anybody in the country.
Yeah, I agree. They're on that tier that's capable of winning a championship. I feel like there's a couple tiers that championship tier they're on. They're capable. But I watched Houston tonight, and I promise you, not beating them. I don't not right now. I just watched how Houston played, and to be honest, I was kind of disappointed with Houston because they were cruising, and Sampson got after them. I'm pretty sure he was yelling at them because they were up 23 and let them come back. But like, they've got to figure it out because if that pressure with Maryland got to them. I mean, wait till these Alabamas and these Tennessees and these teams that they're going to have to face down the line.
But John, my question to you guys, and I say this to you, I say this to both of you guys. We like Houston. I think we all like Houston, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But take Houston out that league. How many teams in the tournament going out of the American?
Nah, for sure. And that's why they scare me because – we played RC. That turn it on, turn it off don't work. It don't work. It just don't work, man. It just don't work. So, like tonight, I feel like Houston was cruising. SMU trying to throw in passes from half. I'm like, they're not really getting any challenge, so we can't really get a real gauge on them. Purdue, we getting to see them get beat up, lumped up a little bit, and see what they do. See they adjust. Houston, I think they're capable, but back to Purdue, I think they're going to have a chance. They have, like RC said, the most dominant player in college basketball. They'll adjust. They'll figure it out. At the end of the day, I think they're in the top tier of teams in general for college basketball. So it's going to be tough to beat them down the stretch. But, that was a home game in Maryland. We don't want to take too much because they lost 2 in a row. I guess we'll kind of take that on the chin. But they'll be fine. They'll figure it out, especially with their guard play, and they'll be all right.
Yeah, looking at their string of losses for Purdue, I think Rob Doster said it on this very show. After the loss at Assembly Hall, he actually felt better about Purdue. And I think I agreed with him at the time, because that could have been a run you out the gym loss.
Right.
They showed a lot of stuff to make that competitive and had a chance to win late. I don't feel better about Purdue after the Northwestern and Maryland games. And that's just where something has changed in the last week, where they had the Northwestern game, and then they just completely fell apart in the final 4 minutes. And then even tonight against Maryland, they're up 8 points with 15 minutes left in this game. A veteran gets a technical. You don't see too many 29-4 runs in the sport. You never see a 29-4 run against the team with the best player in the sport. Like, that's just unheard of. So I guess, John, to your point, Houston's great. We have them in the top tier. I think we'd all probably put Alabama there. Someone jump in and tell me if you wouldn't. Does Purdue belong in that tier at this point? Because I'm dropping them, guys.
Yes.
Who else
like
is in that tier?
Because you just answered your own question. They were up in this game into the technical foul. They were up in the Northwestern game, and there's no shame in losing at Assembly Hall. So if that's all the knock you got on their resume, then it's like, all right. And they're gonna win out. So it's cool to say this now because they dropped 3 or 4 in a row. But there's not a resume out there. There's not a team out there we can't poke holes in their resume that has some flaws. Because we can sit there, even to Alabama. We talking about Alabama, and they just lost to Tennessee, and they didn't have Julian Phillips or Josiah James.